Welcome. Welcome once again to Arts Across America, presented by Sankofa.org and Kennedy Center. We're so happy for you all to join us. Again, Arts Across America, presented by Sankofa.org and Kennedy Center. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the ancestors, all those who came before us, who paved a way for us to be here today. Our Native and Indigenous brothers and sisters, and our African ancestors, all our relations. My name is Gina Belafonte, and I am an artivist and executive director of Sankofa.org. Sankofa.org is a nonprofit organization co-founded by my father, Harry Belafonte, Raoul Roach, and myself. We educate, motivate, and activate artists and allies in service of grassroots movements and equitable change. We use the arts as a tool to engage the public. The Kennedy Center is working with Sankofa.org to curate performances from geodiverse locations across the country to uplift and tell the story of their communities in the time of coronavirus. Arts Across America seeks to utilize the Kennedy Center's digital platforms and partnerships with community organizations to connect and uplift the stories and art from communities from across the country, while also providing much needed support to artists. Arts Across America performances feature visionary cultural curators, artists, and workers using the power and agency to transform their community and thus the world. This is as much a celebration of the community that surrounds the artist as it is about the art itself. Sankofa.org is honored to partner with the Kennedy Center, and today our segment is focusing on artists with what we identify as disabilities. And we will discuss preferred language, shift perceptions, after we get a chance to learn more about and meet our guests. So please welcome our panelists. And I would like to also say a big thank you to our signing artist, Suzanne Lightbourne. Thank you. First joining us, we have Diane Elizabeth Jordan. Maybe Diane, you can wave so we'll know who is who. Diane is a solo artist, an actress, theater and filmmaker, a disability inclusion artist educator. Diana knew she wanted to be an actor ever since she was a little girl. She is an award-winning actor that has been cast in over 60 theater productions and over 18 film and television credits. Diane is also a solo artist with several one-person shows to her credit, and was the first actress with a disability to obtain a master's from Fine Arts in Acting from California State University, Long Beach. She is a producer and an award-nominated director. She serves on the SAG-AFTRA National Performers with Disabilities Board and is one of the disabled advocates for Women of Color Unite. Diana is a chief creative artivist and founder of the Rainbow Butterfly Cafe. And I think we'll have some links in our area there that you can make sure you tune in and write down some of the links that we'll put in there so you can find out more about our friends that are joining us today. Rainbow Butterfly Cafe is an edutainment production company and the film and media production company Dreaming Big on a Swing Films, both launched in 2015. She is a frequent guest on diversity panels and podcasts and hosts the weekly vlog, A Morning Cup of Joy. Since the beginning of her career, Diana remains committed to celebrating disability and social justice, eradicating ableism, racism, and othering stigmas. Through her work as an actor, solo artist, director, producer, disability inclusion artivist, and artist educator. And we'll put in some of Diana's social media links there for you to also see her. So welcome, Diana. Thank you for joining us for this segment of Arts Across America.
Thank you.
I will be introducing each of our other panelists as we move along through the segment today. But I wanted to first ask of you, Diana, just a little question. So it says that you have cerebral palsy, which mildly affects your speech and gait.
Yes.
Yes, you say, I choose to be an artist in my real life so I can tell many stories in my real, REEL, lives. So let's take a look at your reel.
Officer. Be careful. Is this your place or his?
Oh, his. I would never have that IKEA couch.
Who's that?
Hello.
Oh, Frank. His roommate.
Who are you?
Detective Davis. So, Frank, your roommate's been missing and you don't even notice.
Missing? Define missing. I mean, I'm sure he's somewhere, so therefore, can he really be missing?
You don't seem too terribly concerned.
Hi. I don't believe we've met. I'm Kendra.
Welcome to our home.
Have you lived here long, Ella?
Leave her alone.
Were you born here?
Do you like dogs?
She's having kind of a tough time with the move. All she's ever known is New York City. She's convinced she won't find any friends out here, so.
You taking a dog? I have a friend who runs a foster home for dogs. Got lots of them that need a good home.
Do you have a dog?
Me? No, I can't stand them. I'm a pure big cat woman. Hey, boss.
Nellie.
Sorry for the wait, everyone. I've been pretty bad with Ryan Reynolds. Which one's better? White Castle or In-N-Out?
White Castle.
See? Tough choice. What do you think, Snitch? Do you have an early morning?
9 a.m.
Are you an early riser?
Generally.
No. Perfect.
Why is that?
This is for my miracle. Did you know I swam the channel?
No.
Once I get my miracle from Miss Kitty, I'm gonna swim it again.
Who's Miss Kitty?
The miracle maker.
What kind of miracle maker?
The real kind. She can do anything. You think I'm drunk? But I'm intoxicated. But I've been drinking all day.
Yes, I do.
I have cerebral palsy, you asshole.
Oh, that is such great material, and you've done so many things. I want to
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. Diana, we'll come back and we'll discuss and we'll talk with everyone. I want to move through so that the audience gets an opportunity to meet and sort of greet some of our other guests as we move along. So also joining us, please wave, we have Banshen Cox, an award-winning playwright, actor, producer, and educator. Banshen Cox recently completed touring her one-woman show, One Drop of Love. Banshen is also a producer and development executive at Matt Damon and Ben Affleck's Pearl Street Films. She served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Cape Verde, West Africa, and holds a BA in Spanish and Education, an MA in TESOL, you can help me with that later, and an MFA in TV, film, and theater. She has been honored with distinguished alumni awards from CSULA and from Teachers College, Columbia University. She serves on the board of the Annenberg Inclusion Initiative and on the Kennedy Center's Turnaround Arts Equity Advisory Committee. Banshen is also a co-author of The Inclusion Writer, which was announced at the 2018 Oscar Awards by Frances McDormand. Welcome, Banshen.
Thank you so much, Gina. I love the work that you do at Sankofa. I love Kennedy Center. My family's kind of all up in Kennedy Center. My brother works there with Turnaround Arts. And I'm thrilled to be on a panel with Diana and Tatiana. And now I'm glad to meet you, Obi and Renee. But these are folks that I have been able to work with and whose work I love and enjoy. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, thank you for joining us. And so we'll continue moving right along. Next, joining us, please wave, we have Tatiana Lee, who is an award-winning actress, international model, and Hollywood influencer. She serves as a Hollywood Inclusion Associate at Respectability, a nonprofit that advocates for people with disabilities in media. She also moonlights as a disability advocate for Women of Color Unite with Diana. Growing up in Coatesville, Pennsylvania, Lee felt unseen in popular media, and when she told people of her ambitions to be an actress and model, they laughed. Lee moved to Los Angeles to pursue her acting career, and due to the lack of access and opportunities for herself and others with disabilities, she learned to harness the power of social media to speak boldly about accessibility and inclusion in mass media. She is the voice behind the Accessibility Hollywood brand, which highlights her journey as an actress, model, and lifestyle influencer, born with fine. She quickly has become a sought-after speaker for brands like Apple, Bank of America, Human Rights Watch, and the LA Film Festival, to name a few. Lee was in one of Apple's first campaigns featuring people with disabilities using Apple's accessible features and products. Some of Lee's credits include Stand Up, which premieres at Superfest during fall of 2020 coming up, and Coffee with Tim Cook, CEO of Apple. She's also appeared in modeling campaigns, and she was the 2018 recipient of the Reeves Acting Scholarship from the Christopher and Diana Reeves Foundation for her contribution to further disability inclusion in film and media. Let's take a look at Tatiana's clip.
I would look at magazines and watch TV and see red carpet events and Victoria's Secret fashion shows and just stuff like that. And I would always say, I want to do that. That's what I want to be doing. And I saw something very wrong with the fact that no one looked like me. I was born with a birth defect called Spina Bifida, which it pretty much means I was born with a hole in my spine. I've had over 20 surgeries in my entire life. Correcting my feet, I've had surgery in my back, brain surgery twice. The doctors actually told my mom that I wouldn't even live to see my teenage years. My mom didn't accept it. And my mom always distilled in me that I could make the impossible possible. Society doesn't expect people with disabilities to want much because they see us as just someone that doesn't add any value to society. All we do is exist. But I felt that was something wrong because I knew that I had joy to share with other people and just showing people a fighting spirit. And I knew that I had a mission to make an impact. I'm a Black woman with a disability in Hollywood, and I'm the complete opposite of what they see as quote unquote beautiful, and I feel like I stick out like a sore thumb. And seeing how much Daisaku Ikeda fought through his illness, and despite whatever illness he was going through, he had tuberculosis and was coughing up blood and going through so much, and he still wanted to use that as a way to encourage someone else. I was like, I want to be like that. Use my life and what I'm dealing with as far as illness as a way to encourage someone else. But that encouraged me so much because I said, if my mentor can do it, I can do it. I just went for it. And it didn't matter what they thought as long as it was something that made me happy. I got a lot braver to go out and just network my butt off. I said, if no one is gonna learn how to market me, I'm gonna learn how to market myself. More people started following my blog. People started wondering more who I was and come looking for me. It brought about so much more opportunities for me. I never, ever, ever thought I would be able to sit here and tell you I am an international lingerie model, or that I've met Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, or that I've had a chance to be on TV, and that I have a film in film festivals. Like, I never thought I would ever be able to say all those things. I had a story to show that there's more to life than just existing. I want to see more people with disabilities in TV. I want to see more people with disabilities in film. I will continue to fight for it because I feel unstoppable. I feel so victorious, like a lion. I'm doing it gracefully, but I'm pouncing on it.
That's so great. I love your energy. Welcome, Tatiana. Welcome. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be on this panel with some people that I respect and love, and meeting new people to just get to know and collaborate with. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Next, I'm going to introduce them both at the same time, and then we're going to go back in and talk a bit about their work individually. So first, let's say hello to Renee Payne. Hello, Renee. And hello, Obion Defo.
Hi, hello.
Hi. So I just wanted to thank you all so much for coming on Arts Across America with us and having this conversation today. You know, for a long time, I wanted to set something straight before we move on to look at some of the work that Renee has contributed, and then to learn more about Obi's journey. But for a long time, disabled, I was, you know, I think about being a Black woman, how we've been called so many different things. We've been called Negroes, we've been called colored, we've been called Black, we've been called so many different things, right? And when I hear the word disabled or disability, I get what it means technically. But then there was a time when I would use the reference to people with what we would call disabilities. I would say differently abled, which I thought, as a person who is traditionally looked at with having no disabilities, which I would argue, I think we all have disabilities. But I would use the term differently abled. And most recently I was told that no, I don't really, that people with quote unquote disabilities don't really like that term. So can we just talk a little bit about that term before we move on to some of the other work that our other panelists will share? Anyone, please.
Okay, I'll say first, and this is something that I have a conversation with a lot of people with a lot of consulting work I do. We have these conversations about language, and one of the things that I like to say is, first of all, this year we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and it is literal legislation that gives people with disabilities civil rights. And so I always say it's not called the Differently Abled Act, and it's not called the Special Needs Act. It's called the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I think as a whole society thinks of disability as a bad word, and it's not. It's not a bad word. And I think we just need to shift our mindset on that. And one of the things that I always say is special needs, everyone has special needs. Everyone has some kind of need that needs to be met. And everyone is differently abled. But people who live with disabilities are protected under the Americans with Disabilities Act when it comes to employment, when it comes to education, and so much more. And so there's power in saying the word disability.
And I also think it comes from, because disability has been so stigmatized in our society as a negative thing. I mean, we wouldn't say we deal with the predominant culture of Caucasian, but we wouldn't say you're differently raised or differently, I mean, that would be ridiculous. It's a diversity. So again, I think the more we use the art to shift that stigma that having a disability is a negative thing, as opposed to having a disability one of my cultural identities.
Mm-hmm.
No more would want to say that. And again, it had changed because as a community, the disabled community becomes more empowered. We're saying this is what we want to be called. So it is, when we went from colored to Negro to Black, that was the African American community that said, this is what we want to be called now. So the disabled community is coming from a certain power. I know it's not monolithic. We are a big community. However, differently able, I mean, again, it's like, how do you really describe that? I think if I would, well, let's make it nice and okay, and just saying, hey, this is who I am. I'm a woman who lives with cerebral palsy. It's just a fact. And I don't think we need to give it a cutesy terms like handy capable or the other terms that I think are used because of the stigma that exists that having a disability is a negative identity, and it's not. It's just an identity.
And I'd love to add something about language in general.
Yeah.
Being someone that myself, who for 47 years of my life you wouldn't call disabled, and then just over a year ago, I was hit by an automobile and lost both my legs above the knee. So you could conceivably call me a newly disabled person, under this definition. But I really feel this is a reason the arts are so important, because the arts are an opportunity for dialogue, right? And language is an opportunity as a starting point for ongoing rhythmic human interaction, right? It's sort of what I'm feeling. And that's so this is what I think we can use in a lot of modern politics and a lot of social policy, is a framework that helps people create ongoing dialogues so that we understand language. You're white, I'm gender fluid, such and such, as a starting point to look deeper. With the language, we can look deeper behind the words. I'm a woman, I'm a father, there's a human being. And that human being is a complex, multi-layered tip of the iceberg with we're a vast universe within each person. So this is something I think the arts are capable of. And I think what Sankofa, stands for so much is generating interpersonal, human dialogue so that we can get beneath language and get to the soul of the person.
That's so beautifully said, Obi. Thank you. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for this conversation, because I feel there's so many people who want to, be like politically correct and want to be respectful. And there's just not enough opportunity for people to be in dialogue necessarily and understand more deeply what to say and how to just be actually fluid in their communication without feeling like they're tripping up on something. So thank you so much for this. And to your point, Obi, about art, I'd like to move into some of Renee's work and what she's been working on. So please wave, Renee. Renee Payne is the founder and director of Favor Design and Communications, a multidisciplinary creative studio specializing in brand identity, art direction, and graphic design. Recently, Renee launched Included, a dedicated initiative of Favor, promoting social equity, human dignity, and environmental justice. Her commitment to equity and justice spans decades. Currently, Renee's clients include the Harvard Medical School Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Partnerships, the National COVID Black Task Force Initiative through Purdue University, the Black Frontline, a global initiative led by the ARMA Institute of Emotional Justice. Renee recently completed a 4-year diversity fellowship at the Rhode Island School of Design. Her work focused on social equity and inclusion design initiatives, as well as teaching the course Art for Social Change in partnership with Sankofa.org, and dissecting pivotal and complex issues facing our societies and communities. Her gift and passion as a designer and creative director is seen in her ability to listen, to hear clients, to interpret their vision in ways that are both strategically sound and emotionally powerful. Over the past few years, Renee has supported RISD through her design and curation assistance of Abled Differently, an initiative that generates a fundamental dialogue about the perspectives and experiences of the RISD community living with different physical, mental, cognitive, learning, or chronic health disabilities. By sharing the artwork and narratives of students, faculty, staff, and alumni, the project explores how disability informs both their creative practice and daily lives. Let's take a look at some of the show that Renee was able to launch. And let's talk a little bit about it. Renee, please take us through.
Well, first of all, I really appreciate this discussion because it's so important to talk about the positioning. And even with Able Differently, it was so important that we did turn it around, that we did do something different, that it did feel as if Able was something that was positive and really respecting not only the differences, but the experiences behind each person, creating a dialogue around disabilities. So that's how this was really framed. And before we go further with this, you know, the posters really represent the open call. You know, how do we get students, faculty, staff, and alumni interested in sharing their stories around disabilities? So there was a whole campaign that was done around disabilities, really showcasing the testimonies of artists. This one is a painter, Francesco Marino, and it really spoke about his challenges with color blindness. And you hear the testimony and you see the incredible artwork that he's done. And again, it celebrates, it really celebrates the disability. And each one has a testimony behind it. So it's the first one.
So let's go to the next slide.
Mm-hmm. And then this is another one. And again, a whole different feel, whole different testimony, speaking about anxiety and depression. And again, honoring each artist and really trying to design the way that the poster is represented based on the story and the best way to really frame that story.
That's great. Let's go to the next one.
Okay, I think we've moved to the exhibit.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. From these posters, what happened is there was a review of artwork. There were many that submitted their artwork, and the whole intent was that we could create something within the RISD environment that would create this dialogue. So this is part of an exhibit that was done. And some of the artwork that's part of that exhibit. This is Michael Menchaca and his work. Again, does wonderful things with graphic elements. These are very large scale when they're actually produced. Mm-hmm. The exhibit itself represents the artwork that was done by many of these artists.
Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, I guess this is another example of an artist and that dealt with chronic condition. And again, the story itself represents her struggle as a painter and that ability to be able to continue to do her practice. So the artwork, again, represents each story in a unique way.
And the next slide, please. It's really beautiful work.
Yeah. This just represents just some of the art that that eventually the stories came forth within the exhibit as well as the website. Again, honoring each testimony, and it ranged from the hearing impaired to dyslexia to again chronic conditions. But it really represents the range of the work done by RISD staff, alumni, students, and faculty.
I mean, you can really see in this particular slide the different mediums. You have jewelry or sculpture, you have photography, painting. It's really a beautiful display. Let's go to the next slide.
Thank you. And this is part of the exhibit. that, again, was an essential part of RISD's campus.
So that piece, I'm sorry, that piece sort of like in the center, if you go right in that's a condensed version of that larger piece.
Yes, it is.
You saw before. Okay, great.
Yes, it is.
And that is on the RISD campus, correct?
Yes, yes. You know, I think one of the most exciting things about this is it was something that was in a very prominent location where there's a lot of traffic with students coming through. And one of the, I guess, most honorable things that I received, and it was this week, was to hear a student say that didn't know I was involved in this, that has dealt with a disability, and said, you know, I came into that lobby and I felt welcomed and I felt represented. And ultimately, that's what this is all about, that people feel a part, that there's a greater sense of empathy that people carry as they not only go to classes, but they look at the world differently, right, because of this exhibit.
Let's see the next slide. I think it's another view of the exhibit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just another view.
When you walk in.
Differently.
Yeah. Great. Let's go to the next slide.
And just an example of the testimonies that are part of the exhibit. This one was connected to a beautiful piece of jewelry that was done. And she speaks about her struggle being deaf. But if you saw the work, you almost see the parallels in terms of the tactile feel of the jewelry itself in a really incredible way. Yeah.
And the next slide.
Yeah, this one speaks about accessibility. And one of the great things is it really features a lot of the student work and so many faculty that have invested to really tying in disabilities to their curriculum and studies. So there are certain areas of the exhibit that really focused on that.
And I think there's one more slide, or maybe two more. Can we go to the next slide, please? No? Maybe? All right, well, maybe we're having some technical. But anyway, so this is really, really wonderful because, you know, so often as we've been talking about it, and maybe we can come back to all of the panelists to talk a little bit once again before we go into Obi's story, just to talk about really normalizing our community and those folks who feel that, you know, whether they are of a particular color or a gender identity or disabled, that we're all one big family and community. And I think it's really overdue time for us to be more normalized in inclusion of all of us. And Banshen, I thought maybe you could talk just a little bit about the work that you're doing with the union and some of the things that you are fighting for so very passionately for.
Oh, sure. As a co-author of the Inclusion Rider, I'll just quickly explain what the Inclusion Rider is, which is essentially an addition to a contract. So at the time, we created it for A-listers because we thought they could have some sense of power. When they're negotiating their contracts with the studio, they would include a clause in their contracts that says that it's really important to us for you to target your hiring of cast and crew for people who represent what the world looks like. So we would take the demographics of that location as an example and make sure that all of the people that make up the demographics of that location are represented both in cast and crew. Fortunately, since Frances McDormand did us the amazing favor of announcing it at the Oscars, which surprised us all, we're now moving into lots of different sectors, business sectors, and using the Inclusion Rider there, which is wonderful. But for the purposes of entertainment, it's what you've just heard from Diana and Tatiana and from Renee, which is this importance of us seeing ourselves. And that was really what drove us to create it. But to your point, Gina, about using the term differently abled, that was something I was doing as well. And it occurred to Kalpana and I, one of the co-authors, that we hadn't actually consulted with disability rights activists as we were putting the inclusion rider together, even though we included language for that. And so we called on Diana and Tatiana to work with us on that language. And we're proud to say that we're updating the inclusion rider. We're also looking at colorism in casting in particular. So we can't wait to share the work that we've done together. But yeah, this is, you have it right here. The fact that these women had to grow up and not see themselves represented is wrong, beyond wrong. And even if you look at it from a profit standpoint, it's wrong. Like, this is a community that once they see themselves will actually pay money to see themselves. So for all kinds of reasons, we need to make sure that everyone is represented. So that's the work we're doing with the inclusion rider.
That's so great. That's so great. So certainly not last, and for those of you who don't know, Obi and Defo is my cousin. And I am so grateful that I could bring him on this segment with us. As he stated, he's sort of a newer member to the family of disabilities. But let me speak a bit about him, and then let's see a little clip that will tell us more about Obi's journey, and we'll talk about it. So Obi is an actor, writer, director, and arts education advocate, devoting his life to storytelling and the power of the arts. Obi has chosen to thread his Nigerian and Jewish American roots into a life-affirming kaleidoscopic exploration of multiculturalism and human awareness. The goal? Unity. After a diverse upbringing in Los Angeles, California, Obi embarked upon his undergraduate degree in psychology and theater at Yale University, then remained in New Haven, Connecticut for his master's degree in acting at the Yale School of Drama. Obi began in-depth work as an actor, crafting impactful roles on television. He did 3 seasons on Dawson's Creek, 3 seasons on Stargate SG-1, along with pivotal roles on Star Trek, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager, The West Wing, The Wayne Brothers, The Jamie Foxx Show, along with pilots for CBS, NBC, and ABC, and culturally relevant portrayals in film and theater. Obi is the founder of the arts education nonprofit and multicultural content collective, Arts Alliance for Humanity, bringing artists together from around the world to unite and uplift the planet. Obi is currently in pre-production as lead writer on 2 groundbreaking multicultural television series. One is Juice Bar, a magical comedic satire centering around the spirituality and the global organic food and health movement. And the other, Dream Big, a cinematic journey into the lives of ordinary people with extraordinary abilities. Last August, struck by a hit-and-run drunk driver, Obi and Defo has only deepened his commitment to inclusion and unity, returning to his television and film content creation and taking on new acting, writing, and directing roles in his new body. Let's take a look at this little Inside Edition clip.
An actor who starred in several landmark TV shows stands tall as an inspiration to others after losing his legs in a devastating accident. Jim Murray has his story.
This actor and yoga teacher, whose legs were amputated in a horrific hit-and-run crash, refuses to let anything slow him down.
I wasn't going to let, amputations of my legs stop me.
Get me another one! Obi and Defo appeared in Star Trek Deep Space Nine and was a series regular on Dawson's Creek. At a commanding 6 feet 4 inches tall, he was a force to be reckoned with on Stargate SG-1.
This is right where I was hit.
Obi was loading groceries into his parked car when he was struck by a suspected drunk driver.
My right leg was severed instantly, and the left had to be amputated above the knee at the hospital about half an hour later.
Footage from the scene shows his car's crumpled bumper and a pool of blood where he was standing.
It was horrible, but in some ways I was fine.
The doctors couldn't believe it.
They couldn't
It's a
believe
miracle,
that you
yeah.
pulled through.
Yeah.
It was a miracle he survived. What he did next was just as incredible.
I made the decision to not do pain medication.
Here he is working out 6 weeks after losing his legs. 9 weeks after the accident, he was back to yoga. Today, he displays extraordinary strength and determination. Incredibly, he calls losing his legs an opportunity to do something more with his life.
An opportunity to keep working, to keep creating as an actor and a writer, and to find new opportunities, and to hopefully, you know, be a beacon of light to others.
Welcome, Obi. Thank you so much for joining us and being part of this conversation and this dialogue.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure.
One of the things I'd like to talk to you about, not only as it relates to the art and the work that you're doing, but you also are very, like, you know, it says in that clip, you chose not to take any pain medication.
Yeah.
And I would love for you to speak a bit about your passion around food and diet, and the things that you also work on spiritually in the process of your healing.
Sure. Yeah. You know, wow, I'm trying to think where to start with that. You know, we started talking about disability and other abled and all this stuff. And, you know, Tatiana had a brilliant point, you know, about the power of collectivism around language, you know, to sort of invoke that term disability, you know, to help empower and uplift and galvanize, you know, a movement and a psychic orientation. And, you know, as artists, we're always trying to, you know, open the mind and then sort of galvanize. We kind of, it's a dance, the dialogue between both polarities, you know. So I've just been endlessly fascinated lately with this sort of new, now I'm disabled for a year, you know, my legs are gone, quote unquote. And it's like, it's been, like I said in the video, it's been horrific, but it's been a real spiritual, like being shot through a spiritual cannon, you know what I mean? And it's been an opportunity for me to look deeper in myself and to look deeper in other people and say, wait a minute. Yes, on the one hand, it's true that people who may need to self-identify as disabled, that's very important, and that's important. And if we may perceive others as disabled, but the more I also work with kids who are on the spectrum of autism, Asperger's, ADHD, this kind of thing. The more I agree with Gina that I, you know, the levels and nuances of types of disability. I also struggled with a crippling eating disorder as a young person, which I still cope with today, my relationship with food, which nearly took my life several times. And so, you know, in this time of pandemics, we're dealing a lot with, you know, human health on a mass scale. We're dealing with pandemics of all kinds, diabetes, health pandemics, diabetes, obesity, cancer, depression, anxiety, Alzheimer's. And now what's going on with COVID, I mean, you look to your left, look to your right, who is not struggling to stay alive? You know, who is not struggling to stay alive? And what a great opportunity, what a great field with which, through which the quote unquote disabled or other abled, however we term it, community can be leaders, that we can step forward as leaders, as people who have had tangible physical and emotional struggles, and dealt with, you know, misrepresentation, underrepresentation. So I think I view what happened to me as an incredible opportunity. I was given a gift, you know, and that's a beautiful way to look at spina bifida. That's a beautiful way to look at, you know, to look at cerebral palsy, all these things that we are human beings. We are human beings, okay, who were given tremendous gifts that may or may not be perceived, right? I have spina bifida and I'm proud. I have cerebral palsy and I'm proud. I'm blind and I'm proud. I'm deaf and I'm proud. You're right. Civil rights, no different than I'm black and I'm proud. I'm a woman, I'm proud. Of course I'm proud. I'm a human being. I'm a woman. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? I have cerebral palsy. Like I'm a rock star. How many of you people can say that? You know, so that's my passion. That's my perspective, is that, you know, and what Dean is referring to is my path has been also as a yoga teacher and someone who focuses on what we eat. That's kind of a whole other discussion. But to me, that has become a very unifying thing, is that, you know, we're all the same and we all have a connection to the earth. And a lot of what's happening with COVID now is about our species as a whole, as a collective, whatever you look like, whatever your body shape, whatever your race, whatever your gender, whatever your sexual orientation, to look at difference right now is absurd. We are all, okay, all of us being brought to our knees to have a better relationship with the natural world. Our species is being brought into a closer relationship to nature. And that's what we need to focus on, not on difference between each other. That's absurd at this point. It's absurd.
Thank you, Obi. Yes, that I would be very much in agreement with what you just said. I am in agreement with what you just said. So now I'd like to open the conversation up. You know, we have the Kennedy Center audience, we have the Sankofa audience, we have all of your communities who are tuning in. And we're artists here, and we're using our art to, you know, create content that is informative, that opens hearts and minds, that shifts old stories and reclaiming stories. What do you want this audience to know about either what you are working on, what you're doing, or how this audience can be activated to support, you know, the work that you guys are working on, or how they can even at their own dining room tables begin to have conversations and discussions with what they might learn here today? Anyone feel free to come in.
Well, I want to make a plug for Diana Elizabeth Jordan's One Woman Show, because somebody needs to produce this show on Netflix. So I'll say that. And it's powerful and it's human. It's a universal story of searching for love and finding love. So that, to me, that is her story that she shares in the show is an example of exactly the kind of story that we all need to see more of. So definitely follow this badass woman, if I can say that.
You just did.
I did. Definitely follow her work. But I would love to talk about intersectionality, because within all of this work, it's so important that, and Obi, I think this connects to your point about identity and how, on one hand, focusing too much on differences has gotten us in a lot of ways where we are. And at the same time, a lot of times when we push for representation, it ends up in the direction of the already dominant narrative. And I will say here, a white narrative, a male narrative. And so within one of the reasons that I loved working with Black women on the inclusion rider was that was top of mind, that we were talking about disability in conjunction with all of these other ways we identify. Same with the LGBTQ community. So you have a person with disabilities, and then on top of that, they may be LGBTQ, or on top of that, they may be Black or Indigenous. And that is extremely important to consider all of those identities.
Yeah, I think it's also important that we start reframing some of our language. We use words like think outside the box. No, it's not. The box is really big. None of us are outside the box. We're all in this really big, rectangular, I don't know if that's the word, box. And there's a lot in the box. And we have so many platforms now to tell stories. So it's really important, again, that we include that intersectionality. And I often say, you know, the stories that I know I want to tell, some of them have to do with disability. Some one have to do with being a human being. You know, I always say one of the worst days of my life was finding out when my friend Daniel committed suicide, and two of the best days of my life were when my nephews were born. None of those have anything to do with the fact that I have cerebral palsy. They have to do with the fact that I'm a human being living on this planet. And the more we show the diversity of our humanity, the diversity that this with disability, Tatiana, my dear sister, and we have 3 different examples of disability. So there's so much content that we can, as artists, encourage the mainstream to develop, but continue to develop our own now, because now more than ever, we have enormous platforms to do that. It's a lot of work, yes, but is it necessary? Yes.
Yes. I think, and to add to Diana's point, yes, it is. We have things that we exist outside of our disability. Like she said, you know, I'm an aunt, I'm a sister, I'm a daughter. I love makeup, I love beauty, I love fashion. Those are the things that make me me, and not solely based on the fact that I have spina bifida. And to Fanchen's point, those intersections are very important to talk about, because when we do talk about representation, it is typically through a lens of whiteness. And so therefore, you know, growing up, and I know Diana feels the same way, we didn't see ourselves reflected. I have still yet to see something where as a Black woman with a disability, I've seen myself represented, and anything that I have seen myself represented was actually me or Diana doing it. You know, so I think those are important to tell those stories. And not only that, to not forget about Black disabled women just as a whole. There's so many lack of access and opportunities. And actually, Black disabled women are more likely to not have access to proper education, not have access to employment. And even when you talk about Black Lives Matter, are more likely to be killed by the police. Sandra Bland was a Black disabled woman, and it's like, and just statistically, 50% of the people that are killed by the police are Black and disabled. And so I think it's important that we not shy away from the disabled narrative and talking about it just as much as we talk about LGBTQ and we talk about being BIPOC and, you know, being Black and all those different things. It's just so important that we, you know, not shy away from these conversations. So I'm glad that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And also make it okay for the community, because I still think there's a lot of stigma that happens within our own community. So I think to, again, tell the community, both who have visible and invisible disabilities, that this is a, you know, that's okay. You know, welcome to the club, Obi. We're so happy to have you here with us. Thank you. You are very welcome. You know, and I think it's important to hear stories like Obi's, where yes, your life will transform, but it doesn't have to be over. Your life may transform, but that doesn't mean that your life is over. It means we all go through the transformation. When you become a parent or an aunt, you
we transform.
Right.
Yeah, we transform. We have an opportunity to grow from all of the things that we go through on our core. I mean, those who choose to, by the way, because there are those who sometimes suffer from the mental capacity to see the way in which Obi has embraced this new challenge for himself, shall we say. And, you know, and even the word challenge is maybe not fair for me to say, because maybe for Obi, it's not quite, I mean, obviously we all have challenges. We all have days when we wake up in the morning and we're like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? And I'm just so inspired by all of you and all the work. And you know, I'm so grateful to have performing artists on here, and Renee, you as a visual artist, bringing forward the works of painters and sculptors. And, you know, I just hope that we can continue to normalize difference whatever it is, and that we see ways in which that we can create work that will sort of, I don't even want to say reclaim, but claim, even some ways for the first time, that the word diversity, even in itself, perhaps should be outdated at some point. You know what I mean? It's like we're just people. You know, if we can somehow figure out how to get rid of these borders that we literally have on land, but also the borders that we put up in our identities, and that's why I'm so hopeful about where I see a lot of young people going these days. A lot of young people who are, you know, shifting the narrative around gender, shifting the narrative around how they identify and what they call themselves and who's sleeping with who cares, you know? It's just like, we're human and we need to be more empathetic to each other and find a deeper humanity within ourselves and get rid of these ideas that people are different. I mean, yes, we're different, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yes. The differences are the problem is when you put the differences on a hierarchy. Right?
Yeah.
We are different, and that's a beautiful thing, and that should mean that we're all like this. The problem is when we start to go like this with it. And
yes, I mean, you know, Sankofa is a Ghanaian word, which means go back and get it. And I think of all of the amazing things that our ancestors have left us culturally, and how we all love different kinds of food, you know, from different countries, and how we love different kinds of music from different countries. It's all around the diversity of us and the difference of us that gives us such richness in our lives. And it shouldn't stop at some boundary that someone put up to identify what is acceptable to be something that we can include in our lives and what is quote unquote different.
One love, one people.
One love, one people. Absolutely. So before we close, because we are coming to that time, which always happens, it kind of like zooms by, I would want to open to any of you to offer you any other words that you might want to share with anyone in the community. Please feel free. And I want to acknowledge once again our amazing Suzanne Lightbourne, who is doing such an incredible job for us. And Suzanne, if there's anything that you would like to say and be included in this in some way, please feel free.
Thank you all for the opportunity and for the access to deaf and hard of hearing people that use sign language. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any last words from anyone that they would like to share?
Just one thing. I would love to encourage everyone to vote in this. If you're in the United States or I'm referring to the U.S. election, but and wherever you are, to you know, because a lot of what we're talking about does, you know, come down to our voice and humanity and coming together, and however you view your presence on this planet and the fact that we all are connected. I think voting is such a wonderful opportunity and so needed that we all collectively speak up as a one love community, as a team, as a family, as a collective family, and let our voices be heard, whatever disability we have, whoever we are. So I encourage everyone to get out there and vote this election.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I would piggyback off of Obi and say the same thing. Use your voice. And just in terms of this conversation, create space and make space for people with disabilities in your community. Create access for them, because there's so many things that deny people with disabilities access, from not having captions, not having ASL interpreters, not having things that are wheelchair accessible. So just create space and opportunities for people with disabilities in your community to be included and to use their voice, and for them to feel empowered, because it's so important. And I'd like to add,
be willing to create safe spaces for difficult conversations where you can open your heart, open your mind, and most importantly, listen. Because I think that's the thing, we are afraid. There's a fear about having a difficult conversation. So if we can create safe, accessible spaces to have difficult conversations, because the only way you get through a new barrier is to have that difficult, challenging conversation, which may not be easy, but they are necessary.
Wow.
And I think when you have that conversation, you open it up in so many ways and recognize that it's healing. Not only healing in the work that's being done, but it's healing in those that receive it.
That's so beautiful. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here at Arts Across America. Thank you to the Sankofa team, to Eric Wisa, Maria Belafonte. Thank you to the team at the Kennedy Center, Ayel and Lena. And once again, thank you to all the panelists and Suzanne. Peace and blessings to you all. Have a blessed day out there. And don't forget to vote.
Thank you. Go vote.